Well, my current role is as Chief Operating Officer of the European External Action Service, and I've basically spent the last 4 years setting up the new EU diplomatic service. I joined the Commission back in 1979. I was in the Irish Civil Service, I was in the Department of Foreign Affairs, and like many people I thought I'd come to Brussels for a couple of years experience and then probably go back to Dublin and the Department of Foreign Affairs. And between one thing and another, I've ended up spending the last 35 years here.
Well, I'm in external communications in DG Interpretation, and DG is Directorate General, and it's basically the equivalent of a ministry, like the Ministry of Fisheries or the Ministry of the Environment, but it's the European equivalent. Well, a stagiaire is a trainee, and we like to say trainee rather than intern because we actually are supposed to be learning. And definitely in my case, we're learning about the European institutions, we're learning about what it is to work. I feel like I'm getting skills out of it.
I'm a stagiaire working in DG Home Affairs in the European Commission. The European Commission and the European institutions open up sessions for stagiaires twice a year, in October and in March. As an intern, you are on placement with one of the institutions for 5 months, and I'm with the Task Force Irregular Migration. On a day-to-day basis, I'm just working on policy briefings, drafting emails, handover documents.
I work in the Council of the European Union and I'm a trainee in the Internal Communication Unit. What I do is I edit articles that are written in English and I publish them on the intranet. Then I also interview employees, I write up articles about them and I publish them also.
I currently work as a head of unit in the EU Committee of the Regions. The Committee of the Regions represents local and regional government in the EU decision-making process. I work for politicians primarily from regions national parties like the Scottish National Party, and what I currently do with them is I help those politicians in terms of their daily work. They work 90% at home and 10% in Brussels, and I lead a team that will facilitate their work in Brussels so they maximise the amount of input from local authority levels into the EU decision-making process.
I currently work in DG Employment and Social Affairs, and I'm an administrative assistant looking after interinstitutional relationships, which is essentially that I coordinate answering parliamentary questions, the MEPs' questions from the European Parliament. I ensure that the ones in our field are answered on time and correctly.
I attended St Mary's College in Rathmines, and then I went on to Trinity to do economics and sociology for 4 years. And then I went to the College of Europe in Bruges to do a postgraduate degree.
When I was 15, I did transition year, and for that year I spent a year in France. So when I came back, I really wanted to pursue an education that was quite international. So I moved to Dublin and I did the International Baccalaureate in St Andrew's College in Booterstown. Then I did French and Italian in Trinity, and then I did my Masters in Public Affairs and Political Communication in Dublin Institute of Technology.
I went to university in London for my undergraduate. I read European Social and Political Studies with French, and for my postgraduate I came back to Ireland to study in Dublin.
I went to boarding school at King's Hospital in Dublin, and from there I went and did a secretarial course in Cambridge in the UK. I had done a number of languages at school and ultimately found myself in Luxembourg offered a position in public health.
I went to school, secondary school in Dingle and Langen, and then I went to college in Limerick where I studied marketing management.
I went to St Joseph Cluny. I chose history, geography and biology because I wanted to have a good mix. I think one of the benefits of the Irish education system is that you have to do a broad curriculum. The Irish history course is one of the few that actually has European integration on the curriculum. And when I went to university and did European studies, I already had that background in European integration. I did an Erasmus here in Strasbourg, which was a great opportunity, another capital of Europe. And then afterwards I did a Masters in Modern European History and then a PhD in History.
Well, my advice to anybody who'd like to work in an administrative secretarial post in the European Commission is the same advice for anybody who needs to have strong languages.
While English has become the common language in Brussels, many of the young people that you would be competing with looking for jobs will have routinely 3, 4 or 5 languages. I work a lot through French, so I basically speak French fluently, I also can get by in Spanish and German.
My second language is French, but I studied my secondary level subjects through Irish. I'm not sure if having fluent Irish particularly helped me with the stage for the European Commission, but I think with parliamentary jobs and perhaps cabinet jobs, it looks particularly impressive. And it did come up in my phone interview. I was asked to speak a bit of Irish.
My second language is French, and I could say that 50% of my work is through French.
Is toch as een tochterha leis an réireann ná go bhfuil féidireachtaí do riine óga tacadín Bhroiséal agus obair tí bhean na Gaeilge. Séidir obair is as a Bhroiséal inis mar atangarí, mar aisteóirí agus tá sé anna chabhraach ó hebh dul isteach na institútaí go dos níon tú le ráthanga agus mar mín tú Frankis na Germánis ní éag san beisi sin níos cabhraach fós.
The main thing is to try to get a foothold in one of the institutions. So try to do the stage, the internship. Try, if possible, to even get a job as a contract agent or in some way to find your way to Brussels and get a foot in the door.
You need to have a contact to get your foot through the door, and I think maybe I just sort of had this idea of if I'm interested in Europe and I did European studies, it would happen for me. But now I've realised actually you really do need to do your groundwork, you need to research. You also have to look at the option of working for an MEP from a different country, which they have a lot more MEPs, especially in the UK.
I think that people should seriously consider jobs in Brussels. There's a range of jobs that are not only in the European Union institutions, but also in different consultancy companies in Brussels. The Irish have always been very highly regarded for their ability to network. Not only that, since 2007, Irish is an official language. We have huge opportunities now for Gaeilgeoirí, those that are able to translate documents. We have over 50 people now working in the EU institutions as translators. We have interpreters in the European Parliament, and also you have lawyer linguists in Irish and other opportunities that have become apparent. Not a lot of people are aware of this, but these are new opportunities that are available for Irish people, which they should look at seriously.
The social life in Brussels is incredible. It's intense. There's something going on every other day, networking events, different parties, just many different social events, many different cultural events. A lot of them are free and readily accessible to stagiaires, so it's a really interesting cultural and networking experience.
I've been working for the European Commission for 20 years this year. I'm going to get a medal, and I love the lifestyle here. I really enjoy living in Brussels. I have a young family. I spend a lot of time also in Ireland, but the lifestyle here is great. We work very hard in the institutions, but we also have very, very good working conditions, a lot of flexibility of working, which allows for pretty good work-life balance. There are great facilities. Brussels is a small city the size of Dublin, so it's easy to move around, and of course it's very easy to go anywhere else in the EU from here.
There's a great social life, really. I work with 65 other trainees. There's maybe 2 or 3 events per week, so you can go to as many as you want. You can pick and choose. You can go to them all if you want. And there's also a huge amount of networking events, which are absolutely vital if you want to get on in Brussels.
Brussels is work hard, play hard. I have to say it's a really great environment to come over. There's a lot of activities, a lot of international activities, a lot of Irish expats. There's always something on. I think the temptation is actually it's too easy to do something absolutely every night.
The European Public Service, for me, is the most exciting public service job in the world. There's huge diversity of possibilities for working. You can have 10 different careers in the European Public Service. I started out in external relations working in Japan. Then I moved to social policy, education, higher education cooperation with Erasmus and Tempus. Then ended up as Secretary General, but then became a trade negotiator for 5 years, and now I'm back on the external relations side. You can work in research, you can work in very technical areas if you want, financial markets or economic areas. So there's a huge diversity.
I would recommend it, and even if it's just for a traineeship, to give it a go for 5 or 6 months and see how it goes, and maybe you'll love it at the end and you'll want to stay.